Over the last years, we have been very privileged to handle a lot of very beautiful paintings and very important paintings by Australia's greatest artists. And in my opinion, Australia's #1 painter, the most important artist in this country in the second half of the 20th century in modern Australian art, is Sidney Nolan. We've handled works from all periods, all of Nolan's periods, including some very important key early works and some fascinating late works. None of us will ever forget the night that we sold Nolan's First Class Marksman, which was an important painting from his first Kelly series, which sold for $5.4 million in 2010 and is now hanging in the Art Gallery of New South Wales. But I was particularly delighted when we were offered the opportunity of selling a 1946 painting from the same period as the First Class Marksman. A wonderful painting. The title of this painting is not clear. We are calling it Untitled, and it has a subtitle which is Mrs. Reardon and Child. The reason for the uncertainty of the title is because the painting comes to us without any previous exhibition history. It's not necessarily, we haven't found a record of it in Nolan's records or in his research material. The painting was, however, owned by Nolan until his death, and then it was bequested or bequeathed to his widow, Lady Mary. It now comes to us from a private collection. Now, in 1946, Nolan had already begun his study and research into the famous Kelly paintings. He'd made a couple of studies, he'd made a couple of paintings, small ones. He was working up to the main series. In addition to the Kelly paintings, however, he was doing a number of paintings of a personal nature, pictures which were very important to him personally. But it was Nolan's way of operating, his technique was to conflate ideas, and so he would draw on his personal life and personal events in pictures where there was a more historic or a more open historical interpretation. Classic case of this is in fact the Kelly paintings, and it's been often said by scholars and active researchers into these very important paintings that they actually represent aspects of Nolan's own life at the time. And of course Nolan was still at this time a very young man and quite working in an environment which wasn't particularly open or friendly to contemporary or modern art. And Nolan was ambitious and he wanted to assert his own personality and his technical ability. And he was looking for a subject with which he could do that, with which he could really project himself into Australian art. The Kelly paintings became that subject, but as I said, it's the personal relationships and the personal events that were unfolding in his own life at the time that present such a rich backdrop to those Kelly paintings and affect the way the paintings were actually produced. So the painting we're talking about, Mrs. Reardon and Child, represents a woman who's emerging. She's progressing across a landscape, and she bears a staff in one hand, there's a flower, there's also a child. She's dressed in a cloak. She has a poignant look on her face. There's the sense of movement. All of these things, when tied up together with the fact that Nolan is working on the Kelly paintings and the personal events in his life. He was living at the time at Heidi in the very hothouse atmosphere which was provided by John and Sunday Reid, and he was living in close company with Joy Hester and Albert Tucker at a time when all of these personal, professional and historical events were creating this incredibly heady mix which Nolan was drawing on for his work. The subject of this painting is something which all of us can speculate on. I think it's really a painting that Nolan refused to explain himself. This is a wonderful painting. I recommend it heartily to your close scrutiny. The article or the essay in our catalogue, which was prepared by Barry Pearce, is a really interesting piece of writing, and it really brings home the complexity and the fascinating background to this particular painting. It's one of the best paintings that I've had the privilege of handling in my time at Menzies.